We are very sorry for the technical glitch. Thank you very much, dear panelists, for the wonderful insights. Please stay tuned with us and keep posting your thoughts using the hashtag NationalCOE and hashtag SIC. I would now request my colleague Anand to take over and start with the new session. Thank you.
Welcome to the experience sharing session on raising capital from the global market. We have with us Mr. Dishant Shah. Dishant is the founder of Spherical, which is into API security using unsupervised learning. Dishant founded Spherical Defense in 2015 and received seed funding from UCL Entrepreneur VC Fund. Welcome, Dishant, to this session. We have with us Mr. Akshat Jain. Akshat is the co-founder and CTO of Cyware Labs. Prior to founding Cyware Labs, he was director at Oracle's India Development Center. Welcome, Akshat, to this session. And we have with us Mr. Vikram Mehta. Vikram is the ex-CISO of MakeMyTrip and has been associated with MMT for about 9 years in various sectors. He is also Global Advisory Board member of the Council and a thought leader in cybersecurity. Welcome, Vikram, to this session, and over to you.
Thank you, Anand. A very good morning, everyone. Hi, Akshat. Hi, Dishant. Glad to meet you guys again. Very good morning to the audience. Welcome to a session on raising capital from the global market. I think it's a pretty interesting topic to discuss, although with the core technology leadership of the two startups we have with us, it would have been a very interesting technical discussion as well. But I think let's probably hold that off for a later time. I think without further ado, just sort of starting off with the discussion. So Akshat, I mean, in the cybersecurity space, right? I mean, there are various ways to sort of raise funds, various markets that one could approach. So, in your opinion, are there specific pros that you see while raising funds from a global market specifically?
Thanks, Vikram, and good morning, everyone. Hope everyone is doing safe during these times. So yes, Vikram, there are multiple reasons if I try to put it as a package. What we have noticed personally, like at Cyware, is that awareness of cybersecurity as a market is comparatively, I'll say, few months ahead of what we noticed in the Indian ecospace or Indian investing ecospace. That's one part. Second, the market size itself, because when you raise money in a, let's say, US market, you easily get access to the customers in that region, in that large geography. So the US market itself is much bigger in terms of size, both in terms of the volume, both in terms of, and as well as in terms of price point itself, right? So if you ask me personally, are there benefits in raising funds, being a cybersecurity Indian startup in global, from global investors? I'll say certainly yes. It helps. It helps because ultimately, as any entrepreneur, as any company, we all have expansion plans to go to multiple geographies. If I'm an Indian startup, I like to expand to EMEA, to the APAC, and certainly to the US market, which is important for everyone. It does not mean that Indian market is not good, but US market has its own significance. It has its own importance. So similarly, if we are as a company, as a cybersecurity startup, if I get an opportunity and I can raise funds from US investors or global markets, certainly that will be very, very helpful to get you traction in the US market, as well as exposed to those customers, those peer groups, and overall it is beneficial compared to just raising it from the Indian investors.
Makes a lot of sense. I think especially that acceleration, is also something that is probably setting in a little more, is making things a little easier, given the pandemic situation and the rise in breaches as well. So I think hopefully that level of awareness and maybe ease also picks up pace. Thanks. Dishant, anything you'd like to add?
I think in addition, I think like what you were saying is just the sheer network over there, because what's very interesting in Silicon Valley is it's a dense concentration of all these folks in the community. So your founders, your engineers, your go-to-market folks, your customers, and all these work in a cycle, and you can get development partnerships far easier in a market like that. And I think what's also there is with the access to development partners, if you can quickly get, say, a few POCs or get them as design partners, that really helps. But also what's very interesting in Silicon Valley is it's gone through multiple generations of cybersecurity. So for example, if you just go back to the WAF market, you had the WAF 1.0 folks, which was like companies like Imperva, F5. Then you had, and that whole cycle of them going from inception to IPOing. Then you had the second wave of companies like Signal Sciences, which just recently exited to Fastly for a large amount. And then you have this new wave. As a result, you can find people who've been there, done that, and hire them specifically in your GTM journey. And I think that's what's very interesting, because if you have people who've done this and you have direct folks you can approach that, okay, I'm going to try to get this guy as my GTM person, this guy as this, because they've already done it, makes it much easier and a lot more momentum. So.
I think that's pretty valid, Dishant. So while we're talking about that, right? Is there, let's say, while you feel an Indian startup or any other startup is pitching to the global market to raise funds, is there a specific approach that you'll tailor while pitching to a global investor as opposed to, let's say, a domestic investor? Would that change?
Right. So I think most things are similar. So in any investment, what you really want to pitch is the market, the team, and the product. Now, obviously, everyone's betting on the market, but often the insights, like as Akshat said, is far more developed in the US ecosystems in terms of the market insights. Because while there might be a market for an emerging technology there, it might not necessarily be in India. But I think specifically when you're going to investors, what often if you're going to the seed stage, you want to go with a couple of POCs or some initial traction,
right.
one development partnership or design partnership. If you're going, say, at the Series A level, if you can, obviously, if you have the 5, it again varies from investors. It's less of the magic golden 1 million ARR number to raise an A today. It's more of a range between, if you can demonstrate that you have 5-7 POCs strongly referenceable, and on the other end, of course, the 1 million ARR. Either there are different investors for different ranges. So if you go with that approach, that you have these customers, but often where it changes is that when you're going to American investors, they want your references to be American companies. Often if you go with, if you can go with someone like a Coinbase or a Twilio, that holds a lot more significance in their minds, because they know that these companies are known for the best security practices, and they already know the CISOs very often, and they can just pick up the phone. For example, Coinbase, they can call Philip Martin and get real thoughts on what they think of the product. So I think that's what also changes. And the third thing, which is interesting, which I've been seeing in the Valley markets, is often rather than hiring people directly and then when you're bootstrapped or when you're low on cash, what you can do is in your funding plan itself, you would approach these people and you say that you're going to hire these people post-funding. And so you pitch together with these potential, say, a CRO or a CEO or a CPO, and you raise at the same time. And that de-risks the business because you have the team risk, the tech risk, and product risk. So as you deal this each, it makes it much easier, and I think I've seen that approach also work.
That makes a lot of sense. Akshat, anything you'd like to add?
I think Dishant covered it almost everything. And as far as approach is concerned, traditionally across the world, it's same, right?
Right.
The team, like one thing which investors looks, and I think it's more of a generic tip rather than global versus India. They see whether you can get the team together or not. And many of us would have always seen that if you are a entrepreneur who's doing your second or third startup where you have done one exit, then you get the 20, 30, 40 million series A or seed without even product being there, because investors know that you can build a team. So I think even though you don't have that 1 million ARR or 5 million ARR, depend on the stage, if you have the potential to get the team, you can make investors trust that people can trust you to come along with you to believe in what you are believing in. So I think that's the best part, and that's what I've seen even with global investors. Like when we were pitching for our Series A to like even companies like Zscaler or Tanium who are our investor, like they are companies and not a traditional investor. So what they want to see is the team, like along with product, because investors rely on someone. Like if one investor has done due diligence on product, they rely on that. Like if you go to the second investor, but what everyone wants to see is the team, the capability of the team, and can you bring more people along with you who will trust you, who will trust in your dream. So I think that's a very, very important part, along with the product and everything like that. Somehow we have to show the capability of the team part.
Sure. All right. Makes a lot of sense.
And it's not founders as a team, like along in addition of founders, because founders cannot do anything. So it's a team.
Absolutely.
It's not like I have to find 5 more founders with me, like other people who can develop, who can sell, who can. And typically cybersecurity is a B2B word, right? It's not hardly less than 10% of it will be a consumer word or less.
Exactly.
So it's going to be B2B. So each and every skill set of the team matters. You can develop, you can scale, you can sell, you can market, you can support.
And do you think this discussion sort of changes direction or gear when you're talking about, let's say, cybersecurity versus, maybe a tech or a business enabling product rather than something that probably sits as a cost?
Partially, I will say yes, if we stick to the topic of India versus global investment, right?
Right.
So let's say if we say a tech versus cybersecurity, we have seen there are many cybersecurity focused funds in US. So the investment market of US is, as I was saying earlier, is ahead of us. Like for example, we have 1011 as one of our investors. They're only cybersecurity focused fund. I'm not aware if we have any cybersecurity focused fund in India. So cyber versus non-cyber tech, India versus US, yes, the awareness is more. The investors are having more focused access to larger pool of companies because they know what's happening. So the due diligence is faster, and then the ecosystem which helps you in cybersecurity systems or cybersecurity market by US investors versus India investors. I'm not saying we are lacking behind. We are catching up very, very fast as an India investment market. But probably, I think there's a little bit of difference, which as India, we have always covered up faster. So I'm sure very soon we are going to have cybersecurity focused funds in India as well. And with organizations like DSCI and MESCOM, who are actively working and bringing cybersecurity focused companies to the forefront. So, and it looks like this is the first conference which is happening only for cybersecurity startups. So I think we are not far behind, but yes, as of today, there's a little bit difference, but we'll catch up.
Definitely. And I think, as you rightly pointed out, so there is a lot that's changing in this space as well, and, evolving pretty quickly. In the last couple of years itself, we've seen, significant shift in that space. On that thought, Dishant, question to you. So, let's say if there is a startup that, typically does not have access to global VCs or global investors, how do you suggest they go about, their fundraising journey? How do they, get to that? Or, how do they carry out that reach?
Cool. So I think what's like any industry, I think what really helps is building that network. And if you don't have obviously if you have a few months, you can build that network through events, through conferences, etc. But what if you don't? So there are routes like, for example, in London, we went to Cylon, which is Cyber London, or we also went to the British Intelligence Cyber Accelerator, which helped facilitate a lot of intros to global investors. But at the same time, even in the US, you have this whole ecosystem with Y Combinator being the most prominent. There are also others like 500 startups, and then the smaller. I think there was one specific cyber accelerator in the US called Mac 36, I believe. And so I think that is one way to really hit it off. I think something else, another way if you want to build your network is, like I said in the first or second question, the ecosystem is very strongly connected. So your CISOs, your VCs, customers, other folks. And what you often see is people want to pay it forward and they want to help. So if you approach, say, a CISO or someone who's known in, say, there's a particular CISO group called SVCI, Silicon Valley CISO Investors, they're more than happy to help and help with intros. Or you could also look at exploring an advisory agreement with one of them, because that's going to open a lot of doors. And if you can get this critical mass where you get, say, 6-7 advisors from different networks in this group, effectively you can automatically get connected to most, because often what these VC funds also do is they work with the CISOs as venture partners. So that's a way where you can directly get a warm intro to one of them. And obviously, if nothing else, in fact, when we reached out to one of the US investors, we just cold emailed with a short thing where you establish common touch points. So if you have a common touch point, like another friend they've invested in or an advisor they've really backed in the past, just a cold thing with establishing that trust upfront always helps. So I think those are a few ways you can get access to investors if you don't have the network.
All right. Okay. Akshat, anything you'd like to?
Yeah, no, I think YC is one of the YC or YC type is one of the best way. Second, one good thing in investor community is that they respond, like whether it's a yes or no, but at least they'll acknowledge. So that acknowledgement part is there if you rightly put the proposal, which Dishant was saying. Third thing, I will say, like, let's say if I say just from like the audience perspective today here, where we all of us, like many of the Indian entrepreneurs. So it's not that I have to raise my first fund in US, right? Because I should have my first fundraise. If I'm an Indian startup, pure Indian startup, I should have my first fundraise in India. And then if I've raised it via accelerator or via a VC firm here in India itself, and if there is a need to raise globally, even that ecosystem will help taking you to the global investors. So in addition of me as a company directly going to the YCs and Silicon Valley ventures, if I have raised funds in India, then that ecosystem itself starts helping to raise funds globally for the expansion purpose. So it could be my A, B, or C in US, while I might still be raising a seed fund in India. And right. in addition, I think as Dishant was saying, for the London accelerator, I'm sure DSCI and NASSCOM kind of organization are going to set up that accelerator for cybersecurity companies in India, where Indian entrepreneurs will have access to India plus global investors, not only US, but India, Singapore, US, London. So all those investors are going to look and partner with those level of accelerators, because it's a two-way ecosystem. As entrepreneur needs money, investors also need right team and companies.
Absolutely.
Money, because it's a two-way ecosystem. So I think that helps a lot. And there are examples, non-cyber. There's a company called ClearTex in India. We know they directly raise money. They raise money from YC and they have now BCD. So we have to believe that, yes, we can. It's not that me as an Indian startup cannot go to YC and cannot raise money there.
Absolutely. So very, I think, pretty important and very enlightening. Thanks a lot. I think probably one last question, and then we could open up for Q&A. According to you, in sort of one word each, maybe, what are the top 2 mistakes that are most common during fundraising discussions? Or if you're okay sharing, what are the top 2 mistakes that you made while having a fundraising discussion or a pitch?
So I think I can, as a founder, everyone makes many mistakes. So if I see it as a lesson that we need not to show that we can do many things. Means investors don't want to see that, oh, I can build 5 products or 10 products, or I can do products always A, B, C, D. We have to show that this is one thing we tested it. There is a good response to it. That is what we want to scale, right? Means, that's one part. Like rather than breadth, the depth matters. Right?
Focus, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Second, I can tell from global perspective versus India perspective, because we have raised all the money in Cyware from global market, is product versus services. Like if you keep your focus as a product only, rather than like, oh, I will do product as well as, means, though it's extension of the point number one, but let's focus on product rather than services. And B2B cybersecurity is a partner-driven ecosystem where we have to show that partner enablement. As a company, as a team, we can do partner enablement. Who can take care of the services? And my focus area is going to be partner, rather than I'm building partner plus I'm building product plus plus my product itself. So I'll let someone else do services of my product, and I'll just do my product rather than doing product plus services both. So, and there are many, but I'm sure I'll let Dishant add few, and we'll love to hear Vikram from you as well. I'm sure you have been on other side of the table in the past, must have seen like companies, young startups making mistakes. Go ahead, Dishant.
Yep. So often one of the mistakes we did was if you try to raise without a lot of traction, and so I think it's like a marketplace. There are buyers, there are sellers, there are companies, like startups, and there are investors, and different investors are looking for different things. So if you go to a more later stage, or if you don't have the numbers ready, the traction, often going into discussion is going to not lead to anything fruitful, and you're just spending your time on these extra cycles. Whereas if you can just be heads down, get those 3 to 5 POCs, and then go to raise with being armed that, okay, this is the team, this is the traction we have in place, here are the customer references you can directly call, that which is a much faster discussion. Often, most other times, the discussion will be, okay, let's circle back in 6 months once you have more traction. So you'd rather not have the cycles early on. You rather raise when you have those numbers in place. And I think something else was similarly when we were in the UK, when we tried to raise with British investors, realized the whole thought process was very different from American investors. American investors were willing to bet very early on product, like on just the slides or even a very early product. Whereas often you wouldn't. These guys, the US folks, would understand that, okay, you have access to these customers and you're working with them, cool, and they're happy to work with you on this. The British investors, on the other hand, are more traditional and want numbers like, okay, what are your revenue projections? What is your current revenue? Whereas the problem inherently in cyber is it's a hard thing, because if you're going after the larger companies, massive sales cycles. If you're going after the smaller companies, you probably won't be able to get the kind of checks you're looking for.
Absolutely.
So often what we realize is go after the fintechs who can start with you in a month, 2 months, get the early traction. These will be the tech adopters. Post that, de-risk it by also going to the market adopters, like someone like a Starbucks or a Chipotle, or more mid-market, because often what we mistake as founders is we confuse Silicon Valley to be the rest of the world. So if you build only for Silicon Valley, the issue is it might work with them and they might say very good things about it, but it won't be applicable to all the other companies, and then you're stuck. So if you can think with that insight beforehand, it'll save you a lot more cycles.
Absolutely. I think just to add to what both you and Akshat mentioned, right? So I think one of the things that I've seen not go so well, or rather is my personal view as well, that the timing really matters, right? So when are you raising funds, right? Is it the ideation stage? Is it validated? Do you need a product market fit and then you're doing it? So I think timing is extremely crucial. Too early, in the game, and it generates a lot of pressure. You're still not sure whether things will work or not, right? Raising funds, I think during ideation, which I've seen a few startups do, is I think clearly probably not the way to go, right? I think it's very, very important, as Dishant you rightly said, to get some traction, some validation in the industry done before you can actually even think of approaching an investor. And I think the second thing that what Akshat mentioned is very, very crucial again, is focus, right? So again, cybersecurity is a very, very vast ecosystem, both in terms of the industry side as well as the product or services side, and it's extremely crucial to remain focused on the real problem that you're trying to solve, rather than doing too many things and not mastering one of them. So yeah, I think bang on there. I think there is one question from the audience, right? Akshat, would you like to take that?
Yeah, so I think let me read out the question as well. So how different is the ticket size in US when it comes to seed fund or pre-series A compared to India? So in my opinion, it more than the India versus US, it depends what's your stage. So let's say I've seen seed fund 500,000 to 5 million both in India as well as in US. So let's say if I'm already 500,000 ARR company or a million ARR company and I'm raising seed fund, so my seed round or pre-series A could be 3 million, 4 million. So I'll not say ticket size is really different for the seed. Seed is generally more or less like 1 million-ish, 500,000 to 1 million-ish to 2 million-ish, both in India and US. It depends your size, like where you are. You have one customer or you have 10 customers. So the round size changes later, like Series B or Series C, where it could be 30 or 50 or 100. Again, your size matters. What's your top line and what's your expansion market? So I've not seen a bigger difference in round size between India and US in like first 2 or 3 rounds.
Dishant, anything you'd like to add? Or
I think similar. I think we've seen, like Akshat said, one company I saw the other day, they started with a straight 10 million seed round. So I think you're seeing a lot of stuff happening there. But often what you're seeing most often is terms for startups is they'd often be happy to do like a $1.5 million round on a $6 million valuation pre 7.5 post. And often those are numbers which seed investors are comfortable with. So all said and done, I think that 1 to 1.5, often people are willing to write checks pretty quickly.
Thanks. Anand, any further questions from the audience?
No, not any more questions.
All right, awesome.
The end of time. Thank you to each one of you. Thank you for sharing your insights with the attendees. And I request the audience to shuffle over one stage to the stage 3. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, everyone. Amazing discussion. And thank you, DSCI. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.